Welcome. Thank you for being here this afternoon. We are here and happy to be meeting with you. Today we have the opportunity to have Mr. Merritt with us, our athletic director, to speak to our athletic programs, dates, and upcoming events and how families can have their children involved. And before we get to that point, I would just like to give a brief talk to where we are with TCMS and a couple updates. So I'll share my screen quick with everyone. First off, I'd like to share that we've got some really great accomplishments going on here at the building. Some of our students have been recognized for their literary accomplishments. And so here we have some of our students, Tara Lama, Ada Sorensen, Ariana Cater, Jocelyn Case, and Maria Shanina, who have all been recognized for their accomplishments in the Brighton Memorial Library Alice B. Wilson Annual Literary Award. So we're very proud of their efforts and what they've done. And we just wanted to take a second to recognize them on that as well. And just so that we're all up to date with our New York State assessments for ELA and math, they are coming up the week of the 19th. We are planning, since we are not sure whether we will be hybrid or back 5 days, we are planning for both scenarios. So as you can see for our ELA assessments, we are planning, if we are hybrid, to be testing on the 22nd and the 23rd. If we are in a 5-day model, we will look to test on April 22nd, and then we will make special accommodations for our remote learners. Know that our remote learners are not expected to take the assessment. However, they may opt in to take it. And at this point, we have received a number of names from families who are choosing to do so. So we will accommodate those families accordingly to make sure that their children take the assessment. Okay, so with that, I will now turn it over to Mr. Merritt, and he can speak to athletics and what we have going on for opportunities for our children. So I'll stop sharing my screen now. And then Mr. Merritt.
Yep, and I'm going to share my screen really quickly. And I would just, first off, thanks for having me today. I always like the opportunity to get in front of our parents and our families in the community to kind of give a synopsis of what we're seeing right now, but also what we are anticipating as we move forward. So obviously this year has been a whirlwind at best for all of us educationally. We really have tried to take as much advantage of being allowed to do some of our athletic programs this year. That being said, our modified programs got started a little bit late, but again, we are rolling some of them out obviously right now and moving towards the end of the school year. So I will give you some updates as we get towards the end of my presentation just on dates. But I can tell you that a lot for next year is still really up in the air. The scheduling process is now delayed because of, obviously for many factors, but school's not going back to session right now has delayed spring scheduling. And therefore, the fall scheduling is all delayed as well. So just a quick look, obviously this is what we offer. We have 32 varsity teams, 19 JV teams, and 25 modified teams. Goals for teams, expectations for each level, what to expect. If you look at this, our varsity levels are really our competitive levels. That's where there's a much more emphasis on winning. Generally speaking, our rosters are smaller. JVs are our 9th and 10th graders, where we are really trying to look at development, but getting them ready for the varsity levels. And our modified programs is our entry program at 7, 8, and sometimes 9, and where we're getting them involved with athletics in the Brighton Central School District, teaching them a game and getting ready to be a teammate at next levels to come. If we look at, obviously the scenario of competition versus participation, varsity versus modified, you kind of heard there's a difference in philosophies. When we start out at modified, it's really about participation and getting kids involved as much as possible. This year, obviously, we've had some limitations with that. And again, something that will change moving back in the future is next year we plan on having the full complement of all of our modified programs so that we have as many opportunities for our kids as possible. Some of the safety protocols this year put us, in tougher situations where space was a factor, amount of coaches was a factor, so numbers were limited. The win at all costs mentality, winning is always nice when it occurs, but obviously that is not our athletic focus. It's about giving kids life experiences and really starting from the middle school level and building up to kids graduating high school and having lifelong memories in our athletic program. Communication, a lot of questions that we get, and I will talk about in my next slide is, what can I expect to get information? When am I going to hear it? How do I register for a sport? What do I know about schedules? How do I find out about schedules? And we are really trying to mainstream as much information as possible. Those that have participated in some athletics with your kids have seen the registration process and use, from my e-news and trying to get that information out as quickly as possible. This year, again, a challenge. Normally, in normal years, we have set timeframes where registration opens up a month before the season dates are set, but that looked a little bit different this year, as many of you can see. Resources, and we're trying to put as much information as possible on our BCSD website. I know some of the PTSA reps on this call right now were very, very helpful to me and give me some really good insight about driving people to our website and obviously improving our website. With this year happening, we kind of had a delay on our finalization of our new website. We are very, very close, and it should be rolling out here as soon as our spring season's done. I know Denise on this call was very instrumental in giving some feedback and improving that so that it's more of a resource rather than just a page that no one looks at. All of our coaches have meetings with families so that they know expectations about that specific team. But more importantly, you get to know them as a coach. All of those meetings right now are via Zoom. Obviously, that may change as we move in the future. Our registration program, our school registration, links right there. It is also on our website. Any registration for 7th or 8th graders goes right through this website. It's a very, very easy process. You create an account or you register for the sport of your child's choice. And you do have to register every season. That is one thing. It's not one time for everything. You have to register every season so that we make sure your child is healthy enough to play that sport on any given time. Schedules, the link for schedules, again, it's an Our School product. That is why we went with the Our School registration module, so that those two programs were linked together. And then just other information for you, standings for varsity teams, obviously at our section 5.org website is really where you'll find that. And again, what I'm driving home for you in communication from the athletic office is really all from our e-news as much as possible. Most important things take away from, obviously our middle schoolers, but also, growing into the JV and varsity level, we want student athletes, and we use that, all the time as our kids are students first and athletes second. They have to take care of business in the classroom before they can obviously participate in anything extracurricular. And we have a really huge focus on that, and our kids do a really, really nice job of taking care of what they need to take care of during the day in order to thrive after school on the courts and on the fields. Again, like I said before, life lessons is the goal here, to give experiences that kids can take away from and grow as they leave Brighton at some time. Hopefully they're leaving with these life lessons that they had on teams or with teammates or with coaches, and they use for the future. And lastly is taking risks. Playing on a team, whether you're the best player on the team or a person that is new to the sport, we want to encourage kids to come out for teams and take risks and try new things. Again, we would love to have an opportunity for every single kid in the district to play a sport, and we do have ample opportunity, but we really encourage kids to take risk and try something new. And here's just another piece of that scholar piece of our kids being, scholar athletes first. 92% of our varsity teams last year earned the Scholar Athlete Team Award. That means their cumulative GPA was over 90% and named a School of Excellence just for all of those efforts. Dates, and I know I will get a lot of questions about this, but important dates as we move forward, and one that is always brought up is the next year's fall dates. So modified dates are different than JV and varsity dates every year, and the reason for that is JV and varsity seasons are longer, and they play more competitions. In the fall, JV and varsity sports start during the summer months always. Generally speaking, mid-August to the end of August is always the start date. For fall 2021, our start date for JV and varsity sports, so that would be all of our 8th graders that are going to be 9th graders next year, or 7th graders that might be really talented in playing up a level, they will be starting on the 23rd of August next year. Our modified sports dates, we have tried to stay really true to not starting our modified sports before the first day of school. And again, we're going to stay true to that, and we're going to be starting on September the 9th. As you see below the TBAs, we don't even currently have spring schedules out for our modified sports yet. So the idea of having our winter dates established and our spring dates established, we're a little bit away from that, and I apologize for that. What happens is the state gives us dates, then it comes down to our section, then to our league, then our district to determine when we can be starting all of those sports. But in the immediate future, obviously we are doing kind of what we are calling our fall 2 season right now, which is our football and our soccers and our volleyballs. As of April 26th, we open up our spring sports with our baseball, our softball, our lacrosse, our track and field, and our field hockey. So looking forward to some great opportunities starting April 26th, and really those modified seasons will be running through June the 5th, which again is a little bit later this year, but than normal for a modified season, but at the same time trying to get as much experience for these kids as possible at this time. So those are that is what I have for you right now. I'm more than happy to take questions for sure.
Yeah, hi, I have a question about 7th grade.
Sure.
I have a son. I was thinking we had talked about him participating or attempting to pass the fitness test for junior varsity tennis.
Yes.
So when do they take that test?
Yep. So Brad, it's funny. I just got your name sent on to me today. So you will get an official letter from my office today that will ask for permission to take that test. And then our phys ed staff at the middle school, Jason Wasserman, will be coordinating that and getting them a pass for one of the next 2 weeks to take that fitness test. But you will be, in advance, you will be informed of when that's going to happen and steps to take for you as a family as well.
Thank you.
Hey, this is Robin Stamper. Can you explain how a middle school student would level up to a JV team?
Yes, yep, that's a great question. So it's a couple things. So really it runs through our varsity and JV coaches, for them making a recommendation for kids to play up. Generally speaking, if a parent contacts me, hey, I would like my son or daughter to play up for soccer, I send that note right on to our varsity coaches for them to have that conversation with families to discuss, talent level, what they've done in the past. And then that gets the ball rolling. And then our varsity coaches make the recommendation to me as to who to send that official notification out that your child has been recommended to play up at the next level. And then that gets the ball rolling for the official, what it's called now, the advanced placement process.
Thank you.
Welcome, Robin.
We have a couple of questions in the chat. The first one is, can you talk about the sports that generally take all kids that sign up? And then when do we register for fall sports, and is that open now?
great questions. So I'll start off with every season, we do attempt to have a team that does not make cuts or reductions. This year was a little bit different because of safety procedures, but in the fall every year, our cross-country team does not have cuts. And in the spring, we have our track and field program that does not make cuts. We are looking at our numbers right now for this spring. We still anticipate that we will be keeping everybody on that track and field team, but it might look a little bit different. We might have to pod kids up in order to keep sizes of groups down so that we stay safe this year. Winter's the tricky one. Generally speaking, our co-ed swim is a group that's larger, that makes much less reduction than other teams. But again, we try to say once a season, we have an opportunity for kids to participate in something. The other question is fall sports. So going back to that question, so fall sports in particular, but all of our seasons, registration opens up approximately 30 days prior to the season starting. That is a state mandate. We can't open it up any earlier than 30 days due to if medical needs were to change, if anything medically with your child would change. They only give us that 30-day window. So generally speaking, around that 30-day mark prior to the season. So you can anticipate for fall 2021, our opening day is September 9th. So somewhere around August 9th, we will be opening up that registration for fall sports.
Hi, can you hear me?
Hi, Jennifer, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. I'm a parent of a sixth grader, so please pardon my ignorance. I've never been through any of this before, and I'm a complete newbie. I have a lot of questions. So you said that the goal of modified is more participation, but then you said that they make cuts. How do you reconcile that? And like, how many kids are cut? So if my son wanted to play baseball, for example, like, how high is that bar?
It's a great question. So it's a balancing act. Obviously, we keep more teams and we keep more kids at the modified level in all of our sports. So if you look at the sport of baseball, right, we have one varsity team, but at the modified, we have what we call a modified B team that is strictly 7th and 8th graders. And we also have a modified A team that is a combination of 7th, 8th, and 9th graders to create that bigger window, so that we are allowed to keep, we're able to keep kids safe, one, but keep more kids involved with the sport, because a lot of them, they're new to the sport. At the same time, that balancing act is if you have 80 kids on a football field at a modified level, that situation is also not safe or productive for anyone. If there's 30 kids standing on the sideline, that's also not a great scenario for them as a student, and also technically not a safe environment for any of them. So it is a balancing act, and we have to do it kind of sport by sport. The sport of basketball only has 5 kids on the floor at a time. So obviously that roster for basketball is far less than the football roster. The nice part about our cross countries and our track and fields, a lot of their events are individualized. So it lends itself that we can keep larger rosters and keep them involved with activities in those sports, rather than with basketball rules that limit it to 5 kids on the court at a time.
That makes sense. Is there a list anywhere of what sports are in what season?
Yeah, yep, there is. And again, as our new website gets up and rolling, and Denise, again, help with this, but it's on the website, and we will get it out as well on our new website. But at the same time, it also has been recommended to me recently to just give an e-news after this meeting and just give some reminders about fall for modified parents, just to give a list of the whole year's rundown on what's offered up for middle school students.
Great. And then my last question is just the e-news that you reference. Is that Mr. Nunez's Friday weekly email, or is there a separate news that how do you subscribe to that if you're not?
Yep, you will. It will come directly from me, and I send it to all parties. So right now, as a 6th grade parent, you are not getting them because your child can't register for sports at this time. But you will. So I send it to all 7th grade parents, all 8th grade parents. So it's not something you need to subscribe for. And I send them out as updates are coming or registration deadlines are coming. And you will see them right from Nate Merritt in the athletic office.
Thank you.
Hey, can you hear me? This is Mike.
Hi, Mike. How are you?
Hi, it says Jacob, but that's my son. I'm Mike. Uh, I'm in the same position as Jennifer, so please forgive my ignorance about modified sports. When someone tries out for track and field, are they trying out for a specific event? And which events does it include, and how does that work?
Yeah, great question. Track and field, obviously being one of those sports where we try to keep everybody involved. At the modified level, we actually encourage kids to try all of the events, to try the short distance sprint events, to the long distance running events, to the throwing events, shot put, discus, to the high jump or triple jump. One, because we have so many kids, it just gives them a great opportunity to have the experience so that when they move up to the next level, they kind of hone their skill of, oh, I'm a jumper. I really like this, and I think this is what I will do at the next level. So during a track and field tryout, a little different than, say, a baseball tryout where there's a ground ball to shortstop and they're going to try to throw the person out at first base. A little bit different scenario for track and field is that they really get the opportunity to try all of the events at the modified level, and they do so purposefully so that they know really where they would like to hone their skills as they move forward. Very different in the sport of track and field, cross country, even in an individualized sport like golf. There's far less experience for youth in those sports, so that our modified level, a lot of kids come to us with zero experience in that sport, whereas a baseball or a basketball, kids may have been playing since third grade in some type of organization.
Is there any place that lists which events are in modified track and field, and I assume not every one of them is, but.
Yeah, no. So there is. It's listed on the New York State Public High School Athletic Association, and again, that link is also on our website as our state organization, and it has modified rules. It has varsity rules, and that would be a good resource for you, just to get a more detailed look at what events are offered up and what might be interesting for your child.
And I heard mention of fall cross country. Now I know they just had cross country tryouts.
Yes.
Will it be happening again in the fall? Or?
Yeah. So naturally, cross country is a fall sport due to COVID and restrictions that we encountered this past fall. What we are living right now is like fall 2, as we're calling it. So modified football, cross country, our 2 soccers, our 2 volleyballs, and modified cheer all got moved to what we're calling fall 2 so that kids could have an experience instead of canceling it. But normally all those sports will run starting the first day of school next year.
Okay. My last question is there such a thing as modified wrestling? And if so, when does that happen?
Yep, that's a great question. Modified wrestling is a winter sport. Winter sports for modified generally start right after Thanksgiving break.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yep.
Hey Nate, it's Denise. In the chat, someone wanted to ask about what happens if you've got a vacation planned for the end of August for your team. And I know that happens every year to people, so if you can address that, I think it's different for sport.
It's a difficult conversation. So there's kind of 2 answers to that. One is that is our tryout period for sports and not ideal by any means. We do try to work with as many families. I think communication is key in those families, talking with our coaches as soon as possible if there are conflicts. But if we are in a situation where there are reductions to teams and there are cuts on any given team, it is imperative that your child be at those tryouts in order to have that tryout with all the other kids of that age group. Again, getting ahead of it, communicating, seeing if there's other alternatives, either contacting me in the athletic office and I can put you directly in touch with coaches. But if you know these things are happening right now, trying to get ahead of it and communicating it is key. But we do encourage people to be at tryouts, as if reductions are made, we would hate to have kids obviously not make teams due to these conflicts. So anything we can do to get ahead of it, we encourage that.
We also had a question. Let's see, can you please share which modified sports typically offer multiple teams?
Yeah, off the top of my head, let's see. That's a good quiz question right now. So both of our soccers, boys and girls soccer, offer up 2 teams. Both of our basketballs offer up 2 teams. Our baseball program has a Mod A and Mod B. Just trying to think offhand. That might be it for multiple modified sports. The other thing I would say to multiple teams is we're always looking at if we have a huge influx of kids and interest in a sport, is we will absolutely look at, you know, potentially adding a sport so that we obviously don't have to eliminate kids, but at the same time, that comes with costs. So it's that cost benefit always. But at the same time, that's something that we will continue to look at, is adding additional sports. But again, that has to be that balancing act where, generally speaking, if we add a sport somewhere, something else has to be reduced somewhere else.
Someone also wanted to know what are the academic requirements for playing a sport?
Yeah, so it's a great question. Again, this year's been a little bit interesting. Obviously, with COVID and different learning environments, the academic policy has been far lax, and rightfully so. I think kids have an absolute huge challenge on their hands, and athletics has provided something so positive as we've seen so far. I mean, our modified kids smiling all the time out there, doing great with safety protocols. Generally speaking, though, is that in our code of conduct for grades 9 through 12, we have actually a pretty rigorous academic policy that is tiered for you can be put on probation with failures. You can actually be eliminated from a percentage of your season. And if it's like a third strike and really you're not taking care of business in the classroom, is that there are situations where, you know, we make a plan for them to be removed from the team for a time period until they can get their academics in good shape in order to reap the benefits of being a student athlete. So yes, there is academic policy that's in place. And again, I think it's a fair one, and it really has to do with working with kids rather than having it be a very punitive plan. It's all about working with kids right off the bat. So that first step when kids may be struggling, it's all about making a plan with the coach and teachers to rectify what might be going on so that they're not removed from the sport or the thing that they love first. I see in the chat too, is there a cost to participate? No, there is not a cost to participate in our sports. It's obviously in public schools, all of that is part of the tax base. There are things and there are extras that go, certain teams order sweatshirts that they all want to get together, an extra hat, things like that families at some points may be asked to, or your child most likely will ask you to purchase that, probably not a coach or an athletic program, but things like that happen. But also to essential items such as cleats, mouth guards, things like sticks, baseball bats, glove, sneakers for basketball, swimsuit for swim, things like that are personal items and essential to the sport. Those types of items for equipment, obviously, that would definitely fall on the family for those personal items.
Hi, I just had a quick question. Can you hear me?
Yes, Elizabeth, how are you?
Hi, good. I'm driving, so I'm not really driving. So my question, my daughter's in 6th grade, so new to modified. She's really interested in soccer. My question is, the modified, it starts September 9th, but is there a tryout like a week ahead of time? Is there a tryout process for it? And then my second part is, I know you don't have the schedule, but can you just tell me, like, in general, do they practice like every day after school or 3 days after school?
great question. So one, whenever we put start dates out, that is the start date of tryouts. You know, in a normal year, we have 3 full days of tryouts for every sport. So if you're looking at, you know, September the 9th date, is that there would be 3 days of tryouts starting September the 9th before teams are made. The average modified season is a Monday through Friday, every day after school practice. There are some Saturday contests, and I can tell you the reason for Saturday contests is because of transportation. Transportation across Monroe County has become a huge obstacle for all districts in getting bus drivers, and therefore it is much easier to get multiple runs out on a Saturday than it is, you know, necessarily a Wednesday afternoon or a Thursday afternoon. So generally speaking, we try to stick through Monday through Friday, but there will be the occasional Saturday, either practice or competition for modified students. But yes, I think you can count on it being a 5-day commitment for sure.
Do I understand that soccer will be starting again in the winter then, or in the fall?
Yeah. Soccer. So all those fall 2 sports that are running right now will return to their normal season in the fall.
Okay, thank you. Great.
I'm sorry, it's just because I'm driving. I would put it in the chat. It's Liz again. Is it possible to try out for more than one modified team? Or once you say, I want to do soccer and you don't make it, then you don't make it? Like, is it possible, or do the tryouts overlap?
Yeah, it's a tough one. Tryouts really start at the same time. So we do ask kids to register for one sport. That is also the reason why in every season that we try to have a non-cut sport though, so that if your daughter tries out for soccer and unfortunately doesn't make the team, is that we would have a cross-country experience for her to fall back on after that trial. The teams that all have reductions or cuts at the same time, it's really difficult to move from one to the other as they've already made their team as well. So that's the unfortunate part about having seasons that run identical times. But yes, they would have to choose one to start with, but we do have some outs if they are not able to make the team, and hopefully they would join something that doesn't have cuts, and it would be an opportunity for them to be active and participate in something new maybe.
Thank you. One last thing. Is there modified tennis, or does tennis start at the JV level?
Yeah, we currently do not have modified tennis. That's a great question. For a lot of reasons, but at this point we do not have modified tennis. So those that are interested in playing, obviously call the athletic office. I'll put them in touch with coaches. We're going through that process right now with some current TCMS families that are looking to play up at the JV level, but that would be our first level. Our JV level is the earliest team sport, you know, for tennis what we have.
Thank you.
Yep.
One of our parents has an 8th grader who would like to try out for JV tennis. Is there anything they need to do? Registration, physicals, fitness tests, etc., getting on a list between now and late July?
Yeah, so I would say first and foremost, have them get in touch with my office. So you can send me an email directly, and I will put them right in touch with our varsity coach, Steve Falker.
Nate, can you talk about like the physical and the dates on the physical, and just so that everyone understands like how that works?
Yeah, it's great. It's great. So this year, like anything, doesn't really matter because they have thrown out that requirement. Generally speaking, all of the kids that participate in an interscholastic sport have to have a current physical within the calendar year of the start date of that season. So let's go backwards. So let's say we're starting September 9th next year, is that they would have to have a physical within the year of that last September 9th, so a year ago. It has to be within the same calendar year for their participation. So something to be thinking about is if your child needs a physical prior to next school year and they're thinking about participating in a sport in the fall, the summertime is a great time to do so.
This is just a physical that you'd get from your pediatrician, correct?
Exactly.
It's not a special physical for the sport.
Nope. It's just just from just from your pediatrician. And then during the registration process, you can upload that physical there, but you also will be sending it into our nurses' offices anyways.
Thank you.
And can you also talk about how before each season you have to go through, you put the physical in, but then there's a list of questions before each season, just so everyone understands that?
Yeah, I'll go back to that point. During my presentation, I talked about registration and clicking on the link. The registration is per season. So one, you will create an account in our school registration, and it'll have Nate Merritt and my 2 children in it, and what they may have done in the past. Each season I have to go in, I'll use my daughter, for example, Grace Merritt. I'll have to go in each season for Grace, select which sport that she would be registering for that season, upload a physical if there's a physical to be uploaded, and then there's a interval health history questions that basically takes you through the current state of your child's health. Allergies, medication, things like that has to be done by law every season, so that we know your child's in good shape to be participating in. Once you submit that registration every season, it goes directly onto our nurse's office at the building, and then they approve your child for participation. So each one of your child has someone kind of go through with a fine-tooth comb of all the health regulations and say, yes, this child's okay to try out prior to the date of the start of tryouts.
I apologize if you covered this and I didn't already catch it. Did you say that most teams practice every day after school?
Yes.
Okay. For like an hour, 2 hours?
Yeah, it's generally speaking a 2-hour window. Hour and a half to 2 hours, I would say, is average. Our modified sports are definitely, Monday through Friday with the occasional Saturday. We are seeing more Saturdays right now just because our seasons are really condensed in this odd year. But generally speaking, there's going to be a one-off here or there on a Saturday. But yes, I think you can anticipate an hour and a half to 2 hours after school for a interscholastic sport.
Is there like a maximum number of practices that are allowed to be missed? I'm thinking, my son's getting orthodontia, so pretty much every week after school we have an appointment. How does that work when there are other life events?
Yeah. Again, I go back to the conversation about vacations. Is one, communication's key, and working with coaches ahead of time to say we have these things. But again, I'll go back to my point is that missing a day of practice every week is challenging. Especially in a modified season that generally speaking only lasts 7 or 8 weeks, and we're only practicing 5 days a week. Is that again, the one-offs? Hey, my child needs to miss this day. It's really important. Again, the athletic program tries to be as flexible as possible, but we also do ask for that commitment of kids, being there. So we would just ask for families to work with coaches and kind of meet on a common ground that's good for the team and also good for your family as well.
Nate, can you talk about transportation to and from events and who provides it?
Yep, great question. Transportation, so by public state ed law, we are mandated to provide transportation to and from every game. So that we have chartered buses, our school buses that bring kids to school every day. We provide transportation to games and back from games. There are times where you may be at a game at Hilton and watching your child play soccer and you want to bring them home. We have a process for that where you will have to sign them out so that they don't have to ride the bus home with the team, and you can take them from there and go to dinner or whatever you would like to do. But at the same time, transportation to and from all athletic competitions are provided by the district. I see the question, do you happen to know the time of practice after school? Generally speaking, for our modified kids, especially for our middle schoolers, we try to get their practices as soon as possible after school so that they're not waiting around. They're meeting their coaches, they're getting changed, and they're going right out to the fields or courts immediately to have their hour and a half, 2-hour practice.
Someone also asked, Does the need for sharing fields and gyms across the district ever push modified practices later into the evening as opposed to after school?
Try not to. It's a great question. So if we do have limited resources, that's for sure. We only have so many gyms, we only have so many soccer fields, we only have one turf field, and we only have one pool. So with that said, that balancing act of trying to schedule things, we try our best to keep as many of our modified sports, our middle school kids, right after school. If we have to push anything to later, we try to make it our older kids who may have transportation to get home and back very easily, whereas our middle schoolers just don't have that ability. There are times where there are gym conflicts where a practice may start at 5 o'clock and they'd be the second block of time instead of the first. It does occur, but we do try our best to keep as many of those modified kids right after school as much as possible. Anything else?
Just wanted to say thanks for providing all this information. It's super, super helpful. And I'm glad it's being recorded because I know there are a lot of families that are really interested in it, and I know we'll be watching it later. So thanks for doing that too, ETSA.
Thank you, Nate. I have one announcement for parents of 8th graders, and it's that we are going to be doing an end of year celebratory bonfire for them as their culmination from TCMS. And the date that it's going to be is June 5th, and it's going to be from 7 to 10 p.m. So mark your calendars for that. And if you want to help with that, be in touch with me. I will be sending an email out about that soon. Thank you. Thank you, Nate.
No, thank you for having me today. And Denise, you and I had talked last year is doing an end of year kind of a culmination of information. And I think a format like this and providing another opportunity for people to jump on and ask questions as we leave one school year and go into the next, especially for potentially 6th grade parents, I think would probably be best.
That would be great.
All right, well, thank you everyone for being here with us today. Again, we appreciate Mr. Merritt being here with us. We appreciate the PTSA for hosting us this afternoon. And once we get the recording, we will put it out for families to view, those that still have those questions. And feel free to contact us personally if you have any additional questions as well. But again, thank you for your time and enjoy the sunshine, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks.